And you said something about 2025. Do you think that's when we're going to see the next bull?
Yeah. So look, this is, I think, a very important point to take a moment to kind of reflect on. In my opinion, one of the most important realizations, understandings one can have when participating in this crypto market is having a confident understanding of the market cycle. And I've had debates with some people messing as to what extent it's useful to frame this conversation in terms of a market cycle. But I do think it is tremendously useful because any market oscillates between euphoric extremes and depressive extremes. And in high liquidity markets, such as, the stock market, those, extremes could be the difference between 5, 10, 20%, right? But in crypto, those extremes are the difference of X's, right? 10x and a 98% correction. We exist in that kind of market. And so it's important to, number one, understand the major driving forces behind this market, and understand the signs to look out for to know when the pendulum is perhaps starting to sway the other way, when the oscillation is beginning. And while no sign gives you 100% certitude, if you look out for certain telltale signs of when the market is starting to shift, perhaps, those signs give you an understanding of when it becomes far, far more or less risky to be a participant in the market. And what I'm trying to get at here is, folks, look, the largest driving influence in this market historically has been Bitcoin. And while people within our community don't like to think about Bitcoin, there's even some people who argue that we're decorrelated from the rest of the market. I would argue that the evidence disagrees with them. And all we've seen throughout this 10-year plus history of crypto is that Bitcoin is the largest driving influence in this market. And so if you want to understand what this ecosystem is likely to be influenced by moving forward, what's likely to shape, the pumps and dumps, it's going to be Bitcoin, folks. And every 4 years, amount of Bitcoin being introduced into the market, it's cut in half with the Bitcoin halvings on a repeatable 4-year schedule, which is what kickstarts these 4-year pump and dumps. And while the influence that Bitcoin has in the market might go on to diminish over time, I would argue that's likely to be a gradual diminishment, and that it still makes sense to incorporate Bitcoin's market cycle into one's understanding until proven otherwise by the market. And so my point is that 1 year after the latest Bitcoin halving, things start to look kind of toppy. And in fact, if you want to get perhaps a little bit more accurate with things, I don't need to pull up a chart. I think I can attempt to summarize and do a pretty good job of summarizing my point here, which is one thing I look out for to understand when a bull market's coming to an end is essentially you got to look out for markers of when the parabola is coming to an end. And if you can look out for those markers and you start to see those markers come next cycle, that's probably a very good indication that it might make sense to start thinking about taking some profits. And one of these markers has been the 50-day simple moving average. I don't want to get too technical. I won't hover on this too long, but I'll try to briefly summarize here. My point
I think this is a good point. I think this is, it's not too technical. I think it's a good point for everyone to know about this. So yeah, definitely go for it.
Sure. So one of the many indicators, signals that I've found to try and understand when a bull market might be coming to an end, and therefore when it might make sense to start thinking about taking some profits, is specifically the 50-day simple moving average. Folks, TradingView, Dex Screener all has free versions. Go look up any Bitcoin chart. Go look up the 50-day simple moving average. And what you'll find is that in the last two cycles, the 2021 cycle and the 2017 cycle, this particular moving average happened to do an extremely good job of calling when the bull market essentially came to an end. Back in 2017, when we began our parabola, we started going up. We had a correction, tested the 50-day SMA, and held it as support during the bull market, during the parabola, thus solidifying that particular moving average as relevant. We continued to pump. 2017, came back down, tested it, held it as support. Continued to pump, come back down, tested it, and it failed. So come 2025, it might not be the 50-day SMA, it might be the 55-day SMA, it might be an EMA, might be a band of cloud, doesn't matter. The point is you find a support level that holds a support at least once during the bull market, during the parabola, thus solidifying that support level as relevant. and then it goes on the parabola, keeps going back up again, might come back and test it, and it holds again. It might keep going, and then once it comes back down to test it, and it fails, you get a couple daily candles opening and closing below it. That has historically 2 cycles in a row, 2017, 2021, both times that this happened with a 50-day SMA that hugged the parabola pretty closely, far better than other moving averages. It marked the end of the bull market. We never sustainably put in new all-time highs again. So if you pair this understanding with the fact that historically speaking, Bitcoin has led the bull market, it rallies before everything else, and it has reached its all-time high before the altcoins. If you look at Ethereum, 2 cycles in a row, Ethereum reaches its all-time high 28 days after Bitcoin. And so while this is not guaranteed to happen in the future, we do have some reason to believe that it's not unreasonable to suspect that next cycle, the altcoins are likely to reach their all-time high a month or maybe more after Bitcoin. If we look at Hex reaches all-time high several months after Bitcoin started to show these signs of weakness. But the point is, if we see these similar signs of weakness come 2025, this is essentially an early warning indicator because we know that Bitcoin historically reaches all-time highs before altcoins. We've identified a historically relevant signal to look out for to understand when the parabola is over. And while this does not guarantee the end of the bull market, it greatly increases the odds. And therefore, it might make sense to take profits. But you could also apply this to Hex. This also worked with Hex. And guess what? It might also work with Pulse Chain. It might also work with Pulse X. And so if you apply the same logic to the coins you like, again, might be a different moving average, but the point is I've explained what constitutes a support level as being relevant. If you apply this to Pulse Chain, Pulse X, then you got a late warning signal. And so essentially with this understanding, you have a window of time, an early warning signal and a late warning signal comes whatever time, 2025, 2026, to realize, potential profits. Because so often in the space, man, we see people throw out 10,000x, 14,000x, all the way to 40x. Richard says 14,000x, Buck Fiat says 40x. Who do you know what to believe? Bottom line is, no one. You don't believe anyone. You believe the market. You look out for whatever the market happens to give you because the market, forgive my language, doesn't give a shit about your arbitrary price predictions. It does not care about you. The market will give you whatever the hell the market wants to give you. And so if you understand the telltale signs to look out for market weakness come around the end of a bull market and take profits based off that objective set of criteria instead of your arbitrary price predictions, I think that gives people a far better chance of realizing whatever profits the market gives you instead of, some arbitrary target that may or may not ever be hit. Hope that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think just looking at those moving averages and seeing, like you said, when it breaks through or when it uses support, it gives you some idea. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a wizard. You can just go on any, go on TradingView or anything really and just pull up 200-day MA or 50-day MA or whatever and just see that happening.
If it's not your keys, not your crypto, get low to hate in the air, cause we hold our own coins, we ain't sticking a share. And we ain't playing it fair, we need billions. Going straight to the moon, don't need ceilings. Yeah, she fine as a whoop, don't need feelings. If she sweet, then some of these secrets reveals them. You could peep too, just come subscribe. It's Brandon B, yeah, coming alive. All the haters, we supposed to kill them. Going on this road from broke to billions.